Hey YNR fans! Welcome to YNR Trends, your young and the restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. In the opulent Abbot mansion, where secrets festered like hidden wounds beneath the polished veneer of Genoa City's elite, Billy Abbot paced the living room floor like a caged animal. His eyes, usually twinkling with that boyish charm that had won over so many hearts, now burned with a feral intensity. The weight of his recent losses, his job at Chancellor, the crumbling remnants of his relationship with Lily, and the gnawing guilt over past betrayals, had pushed him to the brink. But tonight, it was something darker that consumed him. Amanda Sinclair, the sharp-tongued attorney who had waltzed into town with her impeccable suits and unyielding moral compass, had become the unwitting target of his rage. Amanda sat across from him on the plush leather sofa, her posture rigid, her dark eyes locked onto his. She had come here at his insistence, summoned by a cryptic text that promised revelations about Kane Ashby, her former client and occasional ally in the cutthroat world of corporate intrigue. Little did she know that Billy's invitation was a trap, born from desperation and a twisted sense of justice. "You think you can just dig into my family's business and walk away unscathed?" Billy snarled, his voice low and menacing. He stopped pacing and leaned in close, his breath hot against her face. "You've crossed the line, Amanda. And now, you're going to pay." Amanda's heart raced, but she refused to show fear. She had faced down tycoons and crooks in courtrooms across the country. A hot-headed Abbot wasn't going to intimidate her. "What are you talking about, Billy? If this is about the Chancellor merger files I reviewed for Devon, that's all above board," Kane assured me. "Kane!" Billy spat the name like venom. "That lying snake. He's the one who fed you those documents, isn't he? Twisting everything to make me look like the villain. Well, I've had enough. You reveal one more secret, and I swear, Amanda, I'll make sure you regret it." His eyes flickered with something unhinged, a darkness that made her stomach twist. She thought of her son, little Dominic, tucked away safely with his nanny back at her apartment. Dominic wasn't publicly known as hers, adopted in secret after a tumultuous affair years ago, his existence shielded from the prying eyes of Genoa City. But Billy knew. Somehow, he always knew the weak spots. "If you so much as breathe a word about what you found," Billy continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that chilled her to the bone, "I'll go after what's most precious to you. Your child. I'll make sure he disappears, Amanda. Accidents happen in this town all the time. Kids wander off, cars swerve, you get the picture." The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and oppressive. Amanda's breath caught in her throat. How did he know about Dominic? She had been so careful, confiding only in a handful of trusted friends. But Billy Abbot had resources, connections forged in the fires of his family's empire. Panic surged through her, but she masked it with defiance. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, standing up to meet his gaze. "Threatening a child? That's low, even for you, Billy. What happened to the man who claimed to fight for what's right?" Billy laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Right? In this town, right is whatever keeps you on top. Kane's been undermining me for months, whispering in ears, leaking info. And you're his mouthpiece. But if you think I'm bluffing..." He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a photo, a candid shot of Dominic playing in the park, timestamped just hours ago. "I have eyes everywhere. One call, Amanda. That's all it takes." Her mind raced. She needed to get out, to protect her son. But escaping Billy's grasp wouldn't be easy. The mansion was a fortress, and his temper was legendary. As she backed toward the door, her hand instinctively reached for her purse, where her phone lay hidden. "You're unhinged, Billy. This isn't you. Let me go, and we can forget this ever happened. Forget? He advanced, blocking her path. No one's forgetting anything until you spill. Tell me everything Kane's hiding. All his dirty little secrets. Or else. In that moment, Amanda made a choice. Survival demanded sacrifice. If Billy wanted secrets, she'd give him an avalanche, one that would bury Kane and perhaps buy her time to flee. Fine, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. You want Kane's secrets? I'll reveal them all. But remember, Billy, once they're out, there's no putting them back. She began slowly, her words weaving a tapestry of deception that spanned years. Kane Ashby, the charming Australian with the tragic past, wasn't who he seemed. It starts with his identity, Amanda said, her lawyer's precision cutting through the tension. Kane isn't even his real name. He was born Ethan Atkinson, a con artist from the outback who faked his death in a car accident to escape debts and a string of fraud charges. He reinvented himself as Kane Ashby, stealing the identity of a deceased distant relative to infiltrate the Ashby family fortune. Billy's eyes widened, but he urged her on. Keep going. Amanda continued, pacing now herself as the words flowed. When he first came to Genoa City, it was all a scam. He targeted Jill Abbott, your mother, Billy, pretending to be her long-lost son. But that was just the beginning. Kane's been playing both sides in every deal. Remember the biotech scandal? He wasn't the victim, he orchestrated the embezzlement, siphoning millions into offshore accounts under dummy corporations. I have the paper trail, documents he thought he destroyed. The room seemed to shrink as she delved deeper. And his marriage to Lily? A convenience. He married her to get closer to the Winters family empire, but he never stopped his affairs. There's a woman in Australia, Genevieve, his real love, the one he sends money to every month. She's got 2 kids by him, hidden away. Lily thinks their twins are his only children, but that's a lie. Billy leaned against the wall, absorbing the blows. This was gold ammunition against his rival. But Amanda wasn't done. Kane's involvement with the mob? Deeper than anyone knows. He laundered money for the Australian syndicate through Chancellor Industries. That's why Catherine left him that inheritance, he blackmailed her with dirt from her past. And the faked death after the plane crash? Not an accident. He staged it to collect insurance and start over, but Devon pulled him back in. As she spoke, Amanda's mind flashed to Dominic. She needed to stall, to find an opening. But the biggest secret? Kane's role in your father's death, Billy. John Abbott didn't die of natural causes. Kane tampered with his medication during that corporate war, making it look like a heart attack to clear the path for his own ascent. Billy's face paled. You're lying. I'm not, Amanda insisted. I found the evidence in his safe, forged prescriptions, emails to a shady pharmacist. He did it to weaken the Abbotts, to make Jill vulnerable. The revelations poured out, each one more damning than the last. Amanda detailed Kane's tax evasion schemes, his insider trading with brash and sassy stocks, and even his secret alliance with Victor Newman to sabotage Chabot. He's been Victor's mole for years, she said. Feeding him intel on every Abbott move. That's why your deals keep falling apart. Hours seemed to pass as she unraveled the web, but in reality, it was mere minutes. Billy was transfixed, his threat momentarily forgotten in the haze of shock. Seizing the moment, Amanda edged toward the door. There's more, but I need proof. Let me get my files from the car. Billy nodded absently, his mind reeling. As she slipped out, she dialed 911, whispering her location and the threat. Sirens wailed in the distance as she grabbed Dominic from the nanny and fled into the night. But the damage was done. The next day, Genoa city buzzed with the fallout. Kane's secrets exploded across the headlines, courtesy of an anonymous tip, Amanda's parting gift. Billy, arrested for the threat, claimed temporary insanity, but the Abbotts were fractured. Amanda, safe with her son in a new city, vowed never to return. In the world of the young and the restless, secrets were currency, and threats were the price of survival. Billy's world had already been unraveling, but what happened between him and Amanda pushed it beyond the point of no return. The threat that came from his lips wasn't one of those fleeting, careless things people say in the heat of anger. It carried weight, venom, and a darkness that Amanda could not ignore. For a man who had wrestled with his demons for years, for someone who had tried to stay on the straight and narrow, Billy's violent outburst was more than just a warning, it was a sign of what he was capable of becoming again. Amanda, shaken but not broken, understood at that very moment that she could not let him continue down this path unchecked. And the only weapon she had was the truth, the ugly, buried truth about Kane Ashby, secrets that had been festering in the shadows of Genoa City. For Billy, this wasn't simply about Amanda or the child. It was about control, fear, and the gnawing sense that his life had been spiraling in directions he couldn't stop. He had lost too much already: Delia, relationships, stability, and in Amanda he saw both a temptation and a threat. Her pregnancy forced him to confront feelings he didn't want to acknowledge, feelings of inadequacy as a man, as a father, as a protector. Instead of embracing responsibility or compassion, he lashed out with rage. The idea that Amanda's child could alter everything between them filled him with a sense of suffocating dread. He told himself he wasn't ready, that Amanda had deceived him, that she had placed him in a corner. His mind twisted it into betrayal. And betrayal, in Billy's fragile state, was enough to ignite violence. Amanda, however, was no stranger to betrayal herself. Her entire life had been shaped by secrets, half-truths, and dangerous men who thought they could manipulate her. She had learned long ago that survival depended on strength, and strength meant knowing when to reveal what others feared. Kane's secrets were her trump card, but she hadn't wanted to play them, not until now. With Billy's threat hanging in the air, the safety of her unborn child outweighed loyalty, discretion, or even her complicated feelings for Kane. Billy had drawn a line, and Amanda knew she had to step across it. The first time she let the word slip, Billy didn't believe her. He thought Amanda was playing some manipulative game, trying to scare him into silence. He had underestimated her before, often mistaking her calm demeanor for fragility. But Amanda's eyes burned with conviction. She wasn't bluffing. She began to unravel Kane's hidden sins piece by piece, laying out a narrative so twisted that even Billy, hardened by his own troubled history, felt the ground shake beneath him. Amanda spoke of Kane's double life, his manipulations behind the scenes, the deals he struck that kept him out of prison and in positions of power. She told Billy how Kane had orchestrated scams that hurt not just strangers but people close to them, allies who never suspected him. She revealed the truth about the money laundering, the bribes, the betrayals that went far beyond the public scandals. Kane had painted himself as the reformed man, the loving father desperate to put his mistakes behind him. But Amanda knew the truth. The facade was always there to protect his image, while the darker side of Kane thrived in secret. As Billy listened, the anger that had fueled his threat began to shift. Part of him resented Amanda for holding this information back, for using it as leverage now. But another part recognized the significance of what she was saying. If Kane had truly done all these things, then Billy wasn't the only one spiraling out of control. Kane had built his life on lies, and Amanda was now torching those lies to the ground. The question was, why now? Was this just her way of defending herself, or was it the beginning of a war between Kane and everyone who had trusted him? The more Amanda revealed, the more it became clear she wasn't protecting Kane anymore. She spoke about the night Kane covered up evidence that could have saved someone else from suffering. She described meetings in hidden corners of Genoa city where Cain had aligned himself with dangerous people, men and women who would have destroyed reputations if their names were ever tied together. Amanda even dared to say that Cain's manipulations had indirectly contributed to tragedies that haunted others, accidents that weren't as coincidental as people believed. Billy, struggling with his own rage, found himself strangely drawn into Amanda's storm. For so long he had felt like the outcast, the black sheep of the Abbott family, the man who couldn't keep his demons at bay. But Cain's sins dwarfed his own mistakes. This knowledge gave him a twisted sense of justification, as though his anger toward Amanda, toward the world, was now mirrored by the darkness lurking in someone else's story. Yet there was also a flicker of something Billy hadn't expected: guilt. Had his threats pushed Amanda into this? Had his desperation and cruelty forced her to expose something she had sworn to protect? Amanda, on the other hand, felt a mix of relief and fear. The words were out now, and there was no taking them back. Cain's carefully constructed image would begin to crumble once Billy spread what he had heard. She hadn't just defended herself, she had lit the fuse on a bomb that could destroy Cain's life forever. But Amanda told herself it was necessary. If Billy could threaten her child, what might Cain do if she kept silent? The world needed to know, and Billy needed to be stopped. In Genoa city, nothing stays secret for long. Whispers travel faster than truth, and once Billy carried Amanda's revelations into the open, the fallout was immediate. People who once defended Cain began to question him. Friends turned cold, allies hesitated, and even his children looked at him with doubt in their eyes. Cain tried to deny, to spin Amanda's words as exaggerations born from fear. But deep down, he knew the damage was already done. Once a crack appears in the foundation, it doesn't take much for the entire structure to collapse. Billy found himself at a crossroads. He had intended to break Amanda, to scare her into submission, but instead she had given him power, knowledge that could shake the entire town. Yet the weight of that knowledge was heavy. He couldn't decide if it made him stronger or weaker. For every ounce of satisfaction he felt in exposing Cain, there was another ounce of shame for what had driven Amanda to reveal it. His threat to her child still lingered, echoing in his mind as a reminder of how close he had come to becoming the monster everyone feared. Amanda's courage in the face of his darkness forced Billy to confront something painful. He wasn't angry because of Amanda's child. He was angry because he had never fully healed from his losses. The rage, the self-destructive behavior, the addiction to chaos, it was all part of the cycle he had never broken. Threatening Amanda had not been about her, but about his inability to accept love, responsibility, or hope. And now, with Cain's secrets out, Billy saw a reflection of himself in the man's downfall. They were both men who had pretended to change, only to let the darkness swallow them again. For Amanda, the aftermath was a lonely one. She had saved herself and her unborn child, but at a cost. People whispered about her, questioning her motives for revealing Cain's secrets. Some believed she had acted out of spite, others thought she had exaggerated to protect herself. And Cain himself became more dangerous than ever, his desperation to protect what little remained of his reputation making him unpredictable. Amanda realized that she hadn't ended the threat, she had multiplied it. But for her, there was no turning back. The truth was out, and she would stand by it no matter how much it cost her. The irony was not lost on Billy. He had threatened a child to feel powerful, but in the end, Amanda's strength and Cain's downfall only made him feel smaller. He had opened a door he couldn't close, and Amanda had stepped through it with a bravery he hadn't expected. Now, as Genoa city reeled from the revelations, Billy had to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. Would he let his demons consume him completely, or would Amanda's defiance remind him that there was still a chance, however slim, to change course? The story of Billy's threat and Amanda's revelations was not just about violence or secrets. It was about cycles of betrayal, destruction, and the fragile hope of redemption. Billy, Amanda, and Cain were all caught in those cycles, each trying to break free in their own way but often dragging others down in the process. The lines between victim and villain blurred, leaving only shades of gray in a town where everyone carried their own darkness. And so, the aftermath stretched far beyond Amanda's confession. It reached into every corner of Genoa City, touching families, friendships, and futures. Billy's threat remained a scar, Amanda's revelations a wound, and Cain's downfall a reminder that no secret stays hidden forever. In the end, the only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again, for Billy, for Amanda, for Cain, or for the child whose very existence had set this chain of events in motion. The intricate and often devastating interplay between power, secrecy, and maternal instinct forms the core of one of the most compelling narrative arcs in the history of The Young and the Restless, exemplified by the moment Billy Abbott, in a fit of reckless desperation, threatens to harm the child of Amanda Sinclair, prompting her to retaliate with the nuclear option. The public revelation of all the secrets she holds regarding Cain Ashby's true identity and the convoluted history surrounding it. This specific confrontation is not merely a standalone event of high drama but rather the explosive culmination of years of buried lies, emotional manipulation, and the immense pressure that builds when individuals are pushed beyond their moral and psychological limits. The sequence of actions, beginning with Billy's threat and culminating in Amanda's disclosure, serves as a masterclass in soap opera storytelling, where personal history is weaponized and the past is never truly past, but an active force that can erupt into the present with catastrophic consequences. To fully appreciate the gravity of this exchange, one must first understand the profound weight of the secrets Amanda held. Her connection to Cain Ashby was not a simple matter of a shared acquaintance, it was rooted in a complex tapestry of deception that stretched back years and involved a fundamental betrayal of identity. Cain had been presented to the world, and most importantly to his wife, Lily Winters, as the long-lost son of Jill Abbott. This revelation had been a cornerstone of the Abbott family dynamics for some time, bringing Cain into the fold and providing a sense of belonging he desperately craved. However, Amanda, in her capacity as a lawyer and through her own personal investigations, uncovered the devastating truth: the man known as Cain Ashby was an imposter. The real Cain Ashby had died, and the individual living his life was actually a man named Arthur, who, along with his mother, Isabella Branna, had perpetrated this elaborate fraud. The secrets Amanda possessed were therefore not trivial. They had the power to dismantle a marriage, shatter a family's perception of itself, and destroy the very identity of a man who had built his entire life on a lie. She held this knowledge as a form of immense, albeit burdensome, power, choosing for a time to keep it contained, likely out of a complex mix of professional ethics, a desire to avoid causing widespread pain, and perhaps a nascent empathy for the individuals involved. Billy Abbott, on the other hand, was operating from a position of profound weakness and spiraling self-destruction. Billy's character has always been defined by a cycle of addiction, recovery, and relapse, not solely to substances but to chaos itself. At the time of this threat, he was deeply embroiled in his own toxic patterns, feeling cornered and powerless, likely due to a combination of business failures, personal betrayals, and his own internal demons. When a character like Billy feels he has lost all control, he often resorts to the most extreme measures to reclaim it, regardless of the moral abyss into which he is stepping. His threat against Amanda's child was not the calculated move of a supervillain but the desperate, flailing act of a man who had hit rock bottom and was lashing out at the nearest target he perceived as standing in his way. The choice to threaten a child is particularly significant in the soap opera lexicon, as it immediately marks a character as having crossed a line from which there is no easy return. It is the ultimate violation, tapping into the most primal fears of a parent and demonstrating a complete abandonment of ethical boundaries. Billy's threat was not just a means to an end, it was a reflection of his own internal ruin, a signal that he was so consumed by his own problems that he was willing to leverage the most sacred and vulnerable aspect of another person's life.